What it do, YouTube, and welcome to Black Cinema Central, where we talk about classic black movies and why they're dope. Today is a showdown between two relatively new films, One Night in Miami versus Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So today we're talking about more recent films. Both of these films were also originally stage plays, and that just means the dialogue is spitfire, it's strong. If you haven't seen them yet, definitely check them out. One Night in Miami is available on Amazon Prime, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is available on Netflix. So it's gonna be spoilers all up and down this bitch. If you don't care, rock with me. If you do, go watch them and then come back and we can talk about it. First, we're gonna dive into One Night in Miami. On the night of February 25th, 1964 in Miami, Cassius Clay joins Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, and Malcolm X, and they discuss the responsibility of being successful black men during the civil rights era. I remember seeing the preview of this movie and being like, Jim Brown, Cassius Clay, Sam Cooke, Malcolm X, what? And then seeing that Regina King directed it, I was super excited. Let's dive into why I enjoyed the movie. So one, this movie focuses on friendship amongst black men without needing to acknowledge their romantic relationships. And of course, these are powerful historical black figures, so their careers shape their stories. But to see their understandings of one another shift is an awesome journey to be a part of. One thing I notice is whenever you have a story about black men and their friendships, oftentimes the romantic relationships they're involved in tend to be on the forefront, and then the friendship part comes after. So to see that this movie really focused on their bonds with one another was awesome and not cliche. There are so many movies where you have a group of 3 or 4 black men who, we see their friendship, but then the only conversations that they have are about their jump offs, their main chicks, side chicks, because in those movies the conversations are often always about the romantic relationships they're in. The friendships that they have seem very one-dimensional. So to see that we can actually watch as they spend more and more time together, not only do we understand their bonds, but we learn how they first met each other. We learn what they admire about one another. And then we learn why they may not stand one another. And I think that's a reality when it comes to exploring friendships. Yes, you love this person, you ride for this person, but it's one thing you can't stand about this person, or maybe it's a certain conversation you don't like having with this person. As soon as they jump on a certain topic, it's like, here we go. And we see that in this movie. It really makes their bond three-dimensional and complex and realistic, and to see that amongst black men is always a beautiful thing. Number 2, we see different perspectives of being a successful black man and how they individually understand success. So, you have men who have different career trajectories. They've attained their level of success in different ways. And they also have feelings about how one another have attained success one way or another. Muhammed Ali didn't have a problem with Sam Cooke's way of amassing success, but Malcolm X had a choice of words when it came to how Sam Cooke was working alongside white people to make money. And then, of course, Sam Cooke speaks to how, in a different way, he is supporting black artists. And he ends up explaining, like, yeah, I work alongside white people, and I know the industry well enough to know how to make sure that my artists who are writing songs that are being performed by white bands are making money. And that wasn't always happening if you had a black artist working with a record company that has a ton of white execs. Not everybody was getting their money, but Sam Cooke made sure that his artists were getting their share of their coin. Everybody has their point and everybody expressed it in different ways. So to see these men sit in a room and come at each other to try and understand, but also explain not only how they feel, but how they're thinking and how they're operating, was a very profound thing to see. 3, I loved the ending. I didn't know how they were gonna wrap up this story, just because we spend so much time with them in the hotel room as they're talking. But in the end, of course, we then leave that room and then everybody goes their separate ways. We end up seeing what happens post those conversations. And the focus of these conversations ending was A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. I thought utilizing that song to wrap up this story was a beautiful way to do so. It not only wraps up Sam Cooke's plot, but it ends up wrapping up the entire plot. We end up learning about how each of their career trajectories end up changing. Part of it is like, yes, it's exciting, and then of course the other part of it is sad and daunting, because everybody knows that Malcolm X eventually is assassinated. That song also playing at the end is like, God damn it. A change is gonna come, but they still killing our prophets. And lastly, number 4, the dialogue is very strong. And this, of course, is due to the fact that this movie was originally a stage play. In case you don't know, when it comes to having a strong play, you have to have strong dialogue. I would argue that movies also have to have strong dialogue, but that's not always the case. For example, action movies, oftentimes the special effects and action scenes can take over strong dialogue. It can take over a strong plot. So when it comes to a play, dialogue is there. And these conversations, of course, we're always learning something. We're always building tension in one way or another. So you have to consistently build, or else your viewers will lose interest. And I never felt like I lost interest. Now we're gonna move on to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Tensions rise when trailblazing blues singer Ma Rainey and her band gather at a recording studio in Chicago in 1927. First, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom paints a familiar picture of the relationship between Black artists and record companies / music industry. This theme of them wanting to own your voice or mine your talent and sell it so they can reap the fruit of your labor. If you're someone who keeps up with people in the music industry and the things that they're going through when it comes to the rights to their music, then you have some type of understanding of how even today that is still an issue. When it comes to contracts and legal language, even today an artist will not fully understand that they need to understand the business side of music, or else they will get run the fuck over and they will have little to no control over the music that they create and the rights to what they can and cannot call a song, an album, so on and so forth. Black artists have always gone through this because the music industry traditionally has been run by white executives. There are Black music companies. Of course, think about Sam Cooke in One Night in Miami. He was someone who was making sure that his artists were getting paid. Today, you have Black people who own record companies, but that has not always been the case. Going back to Ma Rainey, she was popping in the 20s, and there were tons of Black artists, of course, who were making music and who were trying to get their records recorded because they knew that in some way it would be lucrative for them and they'd be able to perform on a much more grand scale. And when you have these musicians who are coming out of the South who really just want to be a star in lights, you know, they want to show as many people just how talented they really are, they're only thinking about the performing aspect. And you can see that in how Levy is moving throughout this movie and how Ma Rainey is moving throughout this movie. And that takes me to my next point of why this movie was really good. Is it's very interesting how whiteness and white people operate in this film. On one hand, we get Levy's traumatizing experience in which he witnessed a white man rape his mother, yet ironically, he's tap dancing for the white record company execs in an attempt to get some songs recorded. He thinks that he can use these white people. He's so cocky that he fails to see these industry cats are ahead of him and aren't even interested in his ability to perform. They just take his sheet music and say, as far as performing goes, we're going in a different direction, but thanks, we'll hit you up when we're ready for more music. And he's like, yo, but only I could perform it like this. They don't give a damn. On the contrary, when thinking about Ma Rainey's relationship with the industry, she's at a point in her life where she clearly understands this artist-music industry relationship. They're using her for her records so that they can make money. And so long as they're using her, they will cater to her wishes because she is needed. Levy didn't really have skin in the game like Ma did to be taken seriously when making demands. And it's so unfortunate because there's also tension between Ma Rainey and Levy. And there's tension where there could be conversations. She could be schooling him on how to maneuver this business. You trying to deal with these white people in this music industry? Let me tell you how it goes. But because of the tension between these characters, they never get to that point. And Levy has to learn the hard way that your arrogance with little experience dealing with these white folk is gonna get you nowhere. On to my next point, this movie stays true to Ma Rainey's sexuality. And she didn't have to be a skinny, sexy young thing to paint that picture. First, I knew about Ma Rainey before this movie came out because I listened to the blues and I've seen a ton of documentaries about the blues. So I knew of her essence, how people reacted when interacting with her for the first time. And I feel like Viola Davis did a dope ass job really capturing Ma Rainey's essence. And I've never met Ma Rainey, but I feel like if I did, I would get what Viola Davis had put on the screen. I'm glad that they didn't make Ma Rainey slimmer than she actually was, or lighter than she actually was. She was a queer, big, dark-skinned woman. And to see that this movie stayed true to who she was is always beautiful. And then in staying true to her sexuality, you have her little young thing who's with her, glued to her hip, until her little young thing starts interacting with Levy. Ma Rainey knows that sexual tension is in the air and she feels some type of way once she can recognize that tension. And that's not a love triangle that's typical in movies. Also, watch out for this actress. Her name's Taylor Page. She'll be making appearances in the movie Boogie that'll be coming out this year in March. And also Zola, if y'all, follow that story that came out on Twitter. Yes, they're making that into a movie. I don't know when it's coming out. It might come out this year, but yeah, she's gonna be playing Zola. Keep a lookout for her because she's about to come out and match it. That is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and One Night in Miami. If I had to choose, when it comes to character, I feel like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom gets it. Like Viola Davis's performance is just like, she knocked that shit out the park. But when it comes to story, I think I'm leaning towards One Night in Miami. And I think it's just because the world seems bigger in One Night in Miami. The world is very much contained in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It also may have been directorial decisions that I'm kind of leaning towards, but I really liked how One Night in Miami was directed and how we step outside of the contained setting to get certain moments with each character. In Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, it's very monologue driven, so we kind of just sit with the characters during the monologues, and it stays true to that stage play format, whereas One Night in Miami takes that stage play a step further in the screenplay and kind of makes it fit more to a film format. So personally, I'm leaning more towards One Night in Miami, but I did really enjoy Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. How did y'all feel about those two movies? Did you like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom a little more than One Night in Miami? Did you think these performances, acting-wise, weren't that great? Also, are there any black movies that recently came out that you'd like me to review? Are there any black movies that are similar that recently came out that you'd love to see a movie showdown of? Let me know in the comments below. Bye!